Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Era podcast with me, Katrina Jasmine, where we talk about shifting your mindset, expanding your identity, and becoming the most unapologetic version of yourself. So, whether you're in the middle of reinvention, figuring out who you are, or just ready to grow, you're in the right place. So, let's get into it. So, today I have here with me Chel, and I met Chel at a women's entrepreneur event. It was a very closed gathering with just a few of us, but we really connected, and we are really into growth mindset, femininity, and I thought it'd be great to just, have a nice discussion and make a whole episode around this. So today we're going to be talking about setting boundaries without creating bitterness, and I'm very excited about the topic. But before we get to that, I'm gonna let Chel introduce herself.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Katrina. Yeah. Hi, I'm Chel from Soul Trip with Chel. That's soul as in Soul. And I help naturally nice women learn how to build self acceptance and trust, which leads to self love and leads to them being able to set boundaries and have confidence without losing their kindness and softness. As a fellow naturally nice girly with a big heart, this is something I have spent pretty much my whole lifetime learning, and I'm excited to help other women do the same. So yeah, it's great to be here.
Oh yeah, I just want to, I want to set better boundaries, be myself, and do it with kindness. You don't need to be mean to tell people what you want and who
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah, exactly. You don't have to be the bee. Like
No, you don't. You do
and sometimes you
not, but you
can't.
can.
Like you can. Like the ones who can, I admire it. I found, which we'll talk about, it's just not my archetype. It doesn't feel authentic to me. So yeah, we'll get into it. But there are ways to still be strong without losing your softness.
First question: how do I become more self-assured without becoming hard, guarded, or emotionally unavailable?
When you're trying to be more confident, be more assured, this kind of goes back to what we just talked about. You might try to put on a certain facade that's harder. Like you said, you might get more protective. But the thing is, when you're doing that, those are all defense mechanisms, and those aren't true to who you are, and therefore they're not sustainable. And they actually, in the end, can make you feel more negative about yourself. So really having self-assurance is when you know who you are, and no one can take that from you. And so when you take the time to really get to know yourself, understand who you are to your core, and also very importantly, accept all of those parts of you, both good and quote unquote bad, that's when you start building that confidence and self-assurance, and you know who you are when you walk into any room. And that way you don't feel the need to be overly defensive, overly protective, overly on your guard. You should still have a healthy amount of evaluating the people that you're with, but you won't feel hard because you won't need to.
Yeah, I would like to add on. I would say, like, even just with the theme boundaries without bitterness, I've been trying to set some new boundaries, and not gonna lie, I have been kind of bitter about them. So I do think some of that's gonna happen, but I just don't think let the bitterness overcome or overtake you, because you are gonna feel resentful when you're setting a boundary with your friends or your family or whomever or your partner. And it's gonna suck if they feel like they can't respect that boundary. You shouldn't, like, being guarded or being emotionally guarded or unavailable. I mean, that's just kind of like turning it off. Like, you need to feel all those things, but you can't hold on to them. And they're completely okay, and it's totally human to feel like that. And then I feel like once you've accepted, like, this is where I am and this is what I want, just like kind of embracing and embodying that more. And if that person cares about you, respects you, loves you, they will hopefully, like, find a way to meet you at your boundary, or you can find some sort of compromise depending on whatever the boundary is.
Yeah.
You don't want to feel like you're being taken advantage of, but it's hard to just move through it, just like turn your emotions off, because then you're just pushing it down, and it will find a way to come up again.
Yeah, and I would even add that when you're setting a boundary with someone else, releasing the outcome a bit and knowing that how they react to your boundary isn't actually defining who you are, and it doesn't change who you are. And I think that's where that self-assurance comes from.
And also, if you set a new boundary with someone who's used to, like, crossing your boundaries all the time, that might be difficult too to navigate. So just be strong in your conviction and how you're feeling and who you are and what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next question is, how do I set a boundary without over explaining and apologize?
This is good because I don't know about you guys, but when I first started setting some boundaries like with my family, it's much easier said than done. I think this comes from having that conviction within yourself and doing that inner work first to start to feel more confident and being okay with what you want and affirming what you want. So what I mean by that is if you have worked on yourself enough to get to a place where you love yourself enough to not accept, let's say, a friend making last minute plans with you.
The second question is, how do I set a boundary without over explaining and apologizing? So when I set a boundary, I decide what the boundary is. I communicate it to the person, find a way to sustain it, and then give a consequence. I may not actually verbalize the consequence of it, but just know that if they cannot uphold this boundary that I have set, then there will be consequences because enforcing it. So, for example, if someone's always late for dinner plans or something, it's as simple as telling them we're meeting at this time, can you be on time? Or if not, then if they keep doing it, you just say, can you be on time? Or just communicate to them that it's frustrating for you to sit at a table waiting for them for 45 minutes, waiting to order, waiting there. You sat through traffic as well, or however you got there. And if they cannot meet you at that boundary of arriving on time or within a reasonable amount of time, because no, it's not everyone's perfect, like early, but even if they're 5-10 minutes late, for me that's okay. But like if they cannot even uphold that, then the consequences, I will not meet them for a meal or meeting them at a certain day in time because they obviously cannot uphold that boundary that I'm setting.
Yeah.
So that's just something that you could do. And then it's just important to just clarify like what you really want from this person. An easy boundary, but it also could just be like someone you're living with, like you want a clean space, communicating to them that let's find a way that we can clean, or excuse me, if they're gonna make some dirty dishes, can they clean up after themselves? Is it this week it's my turn to clean the fridge and mop or whatever and sweep. Next week it's their turn. How communicating that to them, and then what the consequences. I would say it's difficult with a living situation in that, but just make it clear, like if not, this place is going to be disgusting, or maybe they won't be able to stay and live here with you anymore. It needs to be a consequence that they can, like sometimes you can communicate that. I don't always agree that it's always good to communicate it depending on what the situation is, because obviously some are going to be a little bit more delicate if it's a friendship type of boundary. But just know that if they don't abide by this, then you will either communicate the consequence or you will act it out. Like, you know, even with a friend who's late all the time, then you may not invite them to dinner anymore. Even if it was other friends, it's like, well, you can't respect my time and energy, so I'm not going to invite you into spaces where I'm going to be.
Yeah.
You know? And that's how I handle boundaries. Don't get me wrong. I've definitely been very hurt and upset when my boundaries are crossed, because I feel sometimes I've been disrespected in a way. But if I don't tell the person what the boundary is or what I want, and then they keep crossing it and they don't know, then that's on you. You have to find the courage, the words to communicate what's going on, or you will suffer your own consequences within yourself of not feeling confident or whatever it is, really. And that's how I handle like boundaries, but it ain't easy. It's so hard to be honest with the people that you love, especially if you feel like what you're going to communicate might hurt their feelings. At least that's how I feel. But at the end of the day, that's not my intention. My intention is just my own peace.
Yeah.
Peace of mind.
Yeah, no, those are all super valid points. And I think one thing in particular that you said, I agree even more strongly with. It's your actions and how you react and how you react to the person either respecting your boundaries or not. Because it really comes down to your action. Because if you say your boundary, but then you don't uphold it, then your words become meaningless. I would argue that if you're new to this type of work and speaking up for yourself and also holding yourself to new standards, there are going to be people with whom you maybe don't feel comfortable to outright say, I'm going to act this way now, I'm not going to put up with X, Y, and Z, like your parents, for example. But you can start moving in little ways that signal what you won't put up with and what you will put up with. This is a fun little example. Years ago, we were staying with some family friends and we were in town for a wedding, my parents and I. And my mom, love her, she was coming to the room because their past couple of houses, they haven't always had locks on like the guest room doors, which bothered me so much when I would stay there. And the family friend, they did have a lock and they had a Jack and Jill bathroom. So I locked both of those. I went to like take a bath and then I just hear a doorknob jiggle. And my mom, mostly playfully, she was like, hey, why is this locked? And I was like, oh, because I'm taking a bath and it's my room. And it was very playful, but that's, you know, an example where I didn't go to her and say, I'm going to lock my door because I want privacy because I'm an adult. I just did it. And then it was very clear, this is my boundary, the door is locked. So hopefully that helps.
No, I think that's a great example. And then I think boundaries can, obviously that's a physical boundary that you set, which is just as important as maybe like an emotional one or a mental one that you're communicating with someone. But the most important thing is to find a way to communicate it to the other person. And then if, let's say, your mom was crossing the boundary, like pushing her way in, that's her crossing your boundary. And then that's when you need to speak up and be like, I'm not okay with this. Like, I want my privacy. I want to enjoy this moment. Like, this does not include you, whatever reason.
And my mom didn't push, by the way. Let's make that, I want to make that really clear.
But I'm sure it's like, well, just wait your turn then.
Yeah.
You know?
And she was just coming to check on me. So sometimes people have good intentions, but you still, to your point, you have to be like, no, we're not doing that.
And that's what it really is. And it like just going through the motions and just like being clear.
Yeah.
Okay. So the third question is, why do I feel guilty after I set a boundary, even if it's reasonable? And how do I stop the guilt from making me backtrack?
You feel guilty partially because you've been conditioned to feel guilty, and whether that's from messaging you've received, from family, from peers, from society, then it's also however you grew up, like the nurture aspect of nature versus nurture. If you standing up for yourself was never rewarded, it was always punished in a way, whether it was outright physical punishment, whether it was verbal punishment and condemnation, whether it was like, let's say your parent was avoided and would pull away or something if you spoke up, just throwing out some examples. That taught your nervous system and your subconscious mind with repetition that it's not okay for me to stand up for myself. And also you might feel guilty because you feel like you have to put everyone else ahead of you, you know, people pleasing. And that's how you were taught that you could earn love, by putting everyone else ahead of you. So as soon as you break that pattern and go against that behavior, your nervous system's gonna freak out and think, okay, this is wrong, why did I do that? Which is why you might feel guilty. And then the second part was how you can not feel guilty, is that right?
How do I stop the guilt from making me backtrack?
I think awareness and resilience comes into play. I think it's really good to just be aware that you're feeling guilty and name it, and then investigate why you feel guilty and figure out if it tracks back to anything that I just mentioned. And once you do that, you need to affirm yourself that it was the right choice for you, and just really be your best ally, your best supporter. And that's going to take time, but again, repetition is just what I think is a common theme in all of this. Repeating that behavior, training your brain to know it's okay to stand up for yourself, and that will help you to not backtrack.
It's so easy to backtrack once you set a boundary that makes you feel so uncomfortable, because I've done it too. And it might even push some people away from you because they don't like this new boundary that they've set. They don't like this new version of you that you are becoming because you are setting boundaries that they don't want to respect. In those moments, you can have like emotions come up, like you feel maybe betrayed by this person or bitter, and just see it for what it is. It's really hard to set boundaries, especially if you have set a kind of cadence of how you are and how you've been wanting to be treated, and now you want it to be different. So that's just something important to keep in mind. But don't backtrack. If you set a boundary that you're very serious about, find ways to keep it sustainable, and like what Chelsea said, keep it repeatable, so that the more that you repeat it, your brain gets used to it, and then you just create this as a new habit or pattern. Like, those are all habits you want to break out of it, and then you realize, I'm not taking care of myself, I'm drinking too much, I'm gaining weight, and then now you're like, I don't want to drink anymore, and your friends might be like, oh, you're no fun anymore, like you don't like to drink, and then that could be a whole thing. But you're creating a new like habit for yourself, and not everyone is going to jump on board and be supportive of it. So just beware, depending on what you're trying to change or do, that it may not always be welcome, but it's what's best for you, and you have to stick to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree.
Okay. And the fourth question, what do I do in the moment when I get triggered, freeze, fawn, or go small and I cannot find my voice?
I think in moments like that, especially if you're brand new to this work and trying to figure it out, what helped me when I first started this, one thing is connecting to your breath. So instead of like, you know, if you're feeling like this and you're starting to hyperventilate a bit and just, again, everything's just up here. I know it can be easier said than done in the moment, depending what you're dealing with, but take a deep breath. I even do this nowadays if I'm starting to feel myself freak out a bit. I'm like breathe, get your breath regulated as much as you can first. And just the best way I can describe it is imagine like going from up here in your head, sinking back down into your body. Even just doing that will go a long way for you. Yes, maybe you'll still fawn or freeze, all of that, but this will help you. You know, it's about regulating your nervous system, which is a whole different science in and of itself. But it's about feeling safe again, even just for a moment. Reconnect with your body. You feel safe, even just a little bit more safe. And then you can have a more level head to decide how to plan your next move. I'm not gonna lie, it can be tough, especially with some of these. They are so ingrained in our body from years and years of repetition, but it really is about starting small. So even if you can just connect to your breath first for that first time that you're trying to stop the trauma response, then the next time you take a breath, you get in your body, you count to 5. That's improvement. I think it's just baby steps. What do you think?
Yeah, it might happen that you freeze or fawn, and it is just kind of taking a step back, but just be self-compassionate and just be like, it's okay. Let me just give yourself some time to collect yourself. If you need to go take a breather, remove yourself from the situation, and then just come back when you feel like you've collected your thoughts, because sometimes something can happen to you. You're very emotional. And for me, I know it takes me time to process my emotions. Unless something is so blatant and clear to me, it's hard for me to respond like immediately. So sometimes something will happen, I need some time to process, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I know what's going on. And then I just communicate it to the person again. And I always try to find a way to like calmly communicate it to them. I'm not trying to yell. I'm not trying to make them feel bad. I just want to get my point across. And I find it better when I have some time to really think what I have to say through and then say it to them. But I don't know, it just depends on what has occurred. I'm not really sure. I don't feel good about this. Let me get back to you. You can do a breathing exercise. What I like to do is breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, hold 1, 2, 3, 4, let go, count to 8, and then you just do it again. And then that really can calm yourself down if you're having like an anxiety or like kind of like a panic attack or something. Even if you're not feeling like that and you need a second, just taking some time to just breathe in and breathe out really can help a situation if you're really not feeling good about it.
I love that. And actually 2 things I want to add to this. So one trick that when I was like first starting out with all of this and really needed help, I'm a Pisces, so I feel a lot and I will cry easily just from being overwhelmed or frustrated. And that used to be the bane of my existence in conflicts. So there's a trick that if you press kind of underneath your ring finger, press into your palm kind of here below that line. Yeah, just press into your palm, especially if you can dig your nail in. It takes your focus. It helps you to not cry. I think it might be a pressure point. I learned it years and years ago when I really needed it. Like when I was a teenager, for example, is when I first tried it. But even if it's just bringing awareness to somewhere else on your body to focus elsewhere, like if you don't want to cry in front of the person, which is valid, really recommend doing that. And then another thing to help with the trauma responses is, again, that pattern interrupt. But a couple Christmases ago when I was visiting, we had a miscommunication, and she's a fiery Scorpio woman, so she started getting agitated and she can be quite reactive. But I just actually asked her, I legit said, why are you yelling? And when I tell you, she just stopped, she buffered. She was like, I don't know, you're right. And then she just walked away. And so things dissipated, it was fine. Later on, not too much later in the day, she came up to me and she gave me a hug. She's like, I'm sorry I yelled. You're right, that wasn't necessary. And that was huge. I was like, you just apologized? What? So anyway, pattern interrupt and even like reflecting the behavior back to the person can be a huge help.
And I mean, that's great. And it's also just calling her out for like this. If she needs to communicate something to you, she just needs to yell.
Yeah, exactly. She gets animated, but that's why I was like, I'm going to use the term yelling because that's what this is.
No, I get it. And then also we keep using the term fawn. So I think it would be good if we just kind of explained what fawn means.
That's a good idea.
I don't even know what fawning means.
So the way I would describe it is it's when you're overextending yourself to appease the other person. So again, for example, I'll just use my mom, especially when I was a teenager and we would like butt heads a lot. As the kid, I only had, so much power, especially my parents were big on respect and all of that. So I couldn't always say what I wanted to say. So if I felt that she was mad at me, I would like I would over apologize, or I would tiptoe until I felt like she might be receptive to an apology. Or, I would see if she needs something to be done, or just really, yeah, fawning. It comes from like, timid. It comes from being timid and being scared and just wanting to do everything you can to make the person feel better while you don't feel better at all.
I think that's a really good definition.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last question. What do you do when boundary setting goes wrong? How do I handle pushback when someone gets upset, guilt trips me, or calls me too sensitive?
This one's good because it will happen. And I think ultimately it comes back to being grounded in who you are and having gotten to a place where you accept who you are, and by accepting and loving who you are in totality, you automatically will decide not to put yourself in certain situations and not to take certain treatment. So it's going to vary case by case, but overall I would say the way you can handle pushback in a way that preserves your peace is knowing that the pushback isn't personal. It's just based on how the other person sees life and how they have or have not done their own work on themselves. And when you feel safe to do so, you can just restate your boundary calmly. I think also staying calm and not getting dysregulated and matching the person's like crazy energy is going to put you in a position of personal power. So I would say, yeah, I think it's staying calm, staying true to what you know you want and what you deserve. And when you feel it's safe and necessary, repeat your boundary, stand firm in it, and basically let the person know, like, hey, you can either respect this or we're going to have to change our dynamic.
And I'm just thinking, if a person tries to guilt trip me over a boundary or calls me too sensitive, it makes me evaluate my relationship with this person in the first place, because there's nothing wrong with being sensitive. And if someone's going to say, oh, I'm too sensitive, then depending on the person in the situation, it could be manipulative for them to get what they want out of you and keep crossing your boundary that you're trying to set. And also, like, guilt tripping you into it is the same. So just be careful of, how, when you're setting the boundary, how is the other person, like reacting to you, and how are they making you feel? Consider, how is this person treating you when you set the boundary, and there might be some pushback. That it really depends on how is the pushback. Are they trying to share their perspective of the situation? Are they listening to you and being open, or are they just trying to make you feel bad about it or guilty, or calling you like emotionally like unstable or whatever they're doing? Just like pay attention to that, because calling someone too sensitive can be rude, depending on how they say it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. Sometimes it's said from a place of care because the world doesn't reward sensitivity, although it's a very beautiful trait to have, or it could be manipulation. You never know. It's really just standing firm, and it's easier to stand firm once you know yourself and you love yourself and you're confident.
Completely.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries is another form of just loving yourself.
Yes.
And I think thinking about it that way is much healthier than feeling like, oh, I'm preventing this person access to me or whatever. It's just like finding the peace that you need to feel confident, to feel like yourself. And not everyone's going to like that. But as long as you're happy, that's all that really matters.
Yeah, as long as you like it and you like you, that's, yeah.
And Chelsea has something that she's been working on and that she wants to share as well.
So I have a new free guide for all of you, and we'll drop the link to it, but it's called 10 Phrases to Help You Stop Being the Nice Girl Without Losing Your Kindness. Again, this is for all my naturally warm, nice girlies out there who want to set better boundaries, but want to do it in a way that is in integrity with who they are at their core, which is kind and warm, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we'll have that free guide linked. It's at www.soultripwithchel.com, and I hope it's super helpful. It's 10 phrases you can use in your daily life in different situations, work, friends, family, and yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I'll put the link to the guide in the description below.
Thanks.
It's been a pleasure chatting with you today, Chel.
Likewise.
Thanks again for listening to the Your Era podcast with me, your host, Katrina Jasmine. If this episode resonated with you, or you know someone that needs to hear it, please feel free to share, leave a comment, and follow the show wherever you listen or watch. It really helps more than you know. And remember, at the end of the day, it's your era.